So today we're looking at my property from the air here, and to the left we have a wooded area, a food plot, and then up top we have a small doe bedding area, and off to the right we have a buck bedding area. So I've decided to build a new elevated hunting blind right here in the middle of all of it. I chose this location for the blind because I have fairly easy access to the blind to slip in and slip out without the deer ever seeing or hearing me. So we're going to get at it, and I'm going to show you how I did this. I pre-built the walls and the floor inside my garage. I designed this so that each wall will come down and fall apart with only one screw in each corner. So it's going to be easy to take down, take apart, haul out to the woods, and put back together for minimal disturbance to the deer. So I'm going to get at this, and I'm going to take it apart here, and I'm going to start adding the sheet metal to the sides of this blind. I had all of this sheet metal already laying around the farm, so it was nice to be able to use what was some old junk just laying around. Aside from a few extra holes through the sheet metal, this is actually in pretty good shape, and I just have to patch that sheet metal up once I get it up in the air with some Flex Seal or something similar to help keep the rain out. When I designed the blind, I made the back half about 5 inches shorter than the front half, so that when I put a roof on, the runoff will go right off of the roof towards the front of the blind. Once I got all the sheet metal up here, you can see that it's bigger than what I need, and I have a DeWalt multi-tool that just zips right through that pretty easy. It makes pretty quick work out of this. It's noisy as heck, but it works really well and saved me a lot of trouble trying to cut through this with a Sawzall. It was a pretty windy day, and some of these sheets of sheet metal were 14 feet long, and I struggled to keep that under control with the wind. I didn't get it on camera, or at least I didn't put it in the video, but there was more than once that the sheet metal went flying across the yard out of my hands. But in the end, I got it up, and then I got it cut, so I was able to use those 14-foot sheets in more than one side of this. The tallest part of this blind right now is 7 feet, so it's tall enough that most people are going to be able to comfortably go into it, and not so tall that it's awkward to move around out in the woods and that I can't handle it on my own. I'm not a huge dude, so moving these pieces around is already going to be a struggle for me. Something else that I had to keep in mind is that the trails going through my woods are only so wide. There's lots of trees out there, and it's hard to even fit a truck in some of those trails, so getting these 7-foot wide pieces of wall through the woods on the back of my John Deere Gator is definitely going to be a good chore for me. So once I got the siding up, I cut the windows. I pulled out the Sawzall and thought that would work at first, but it really did not work as well as what I was hoping for, so I switched back to the DeWalt multi-tool. I was going for some speed here. It was hot, it was like 80 degrees, but in the end, the multi-tool took a little bit longer, but it made a much nicer cut on these windows. 3 of the windows are 4 foot wide, and one of the window is much smaller because it's on the side with the door. I did make the door the full height of the hunting blind just to make it a little bit easier to frame in, and that way if there's somebody taller going up there, or if I have something tall to bring into the blind, I don't have to struggle with it. So now I can loosen up those 4 screws and just tip these walls right over. I do have 1 screw in that last standing wall right there. It's actually in the floor to keep that one upright while I take the other walls down. Other than that, it was just 4 screws, 1 in each corner, and this baby falls right apart, which is exactly what I was hoping for. And the boards on the floor are only held together right now with just 4 screws. That way I can disassemble that and get it out to the woods and get my post in the ground by using the floor to actually use to measure. So now for the fun part, driving through my wet, muddy woods in the spring and getting all this stuff out here and ready to assemble. I've got to drive through the woods, a nice grassy area past my food plot, and I've got to take the longer way around. I have a shorter trail, but it's too tight of a turn to get through there with this stuff. And I'm finally to where I'm going to assemble and build this hunting blind at. You can see it's a nice grassy area out here, pretty thick. This is a nice doe bedding area. The bucks come through in the fall and just scrape and rub the heck out of this. And then off to the center there, way out there, there is a small swale in the middle of that field, and that is a buck bedding area. They always come out in the evening and they hold up there tight almost all day long. So I got my post holes dug. We got to get this put in and attach the floor. And it was kind of a struggle to hold it up there, but with the help of Jared, we got this baby anchored up, and it is actually surprisingly level and solid once it got put up. We did find one tick, even though it's only early April. We had one tick out here in this grass already, and it was not on the dogs, it was on us. And you can see the dogs in the background doing what they do best. They are eating deer crap. Lucky us. Stupid dogs. So, for what it's worth, some people are probably thinking, why are you letting your dogs run around in your hunting area? That very same night, my trail cams out there showed several deer wandering through this exact area, coming up to this floor stand and being curious about what it was. The smell of the dogs don't seem to faze them at all anymore because they're so used to the dogs. So I poured my cement down in those posts. It's a super low area. Actually, there's water elevated right up to the camera edge right here where we're looking at. And because it's so wet, I didn't want to just leave those beams uncemented and have that eventually blow over or the ground give there. So cementing that in will help anchor it a little bit, hopefully. And I got to climb up here and actually put those 2x6 floorboards on. And I had them already numbered in the order that they were in to begin with, and they are lining back up perfectly to help support this blind the exact same way I had it. Again, this is day 2 here now, and it's already almost 80 degrees. I am sweating my butt off already. I've decided to camouflage this blind a little bit, make it less noticeable from the road and from the neighbors. The less they know, the better. I don't like nosy neighbors. I've had issues before with people coming onto our property and trying to make a stink about people hunting and trapping, so I'm just going to try to blend this in a little bit, and actually from the road, it blends in really, really well. Bringing the sides out, you can see it's a slow go on this gator because they hang over about 5 or 6 feet, believe it or not. There's not a whole lot of space on the back of that gator for these. And they're heavy. So I have to prop them up side by side and then climb up there without a ladder yet, because I've yet to build a ladder, and lift them up and anchor them in one by one. But once I get this very first piece on, everything starts to piece together very nice. It would have been a lot nicer if it was a 60-degree day instead of an 82-degree day. You can see that sun's just beating down like crazy. But the first 2 walls here made a lot of shade for me, and that was nice. So I'm only putting a couple screws in each of these to begin with, in case things don't line up once I get all 4 walls out here. But they should line up just fine. I made some marks on each wall and on the floor so that I can line those marks and lines up. And so far, things are lining up just as they were up at the house. I bought a cheap office chair from Amazon because if I'm going to sit out here in the cold for hours, I might as well sit in an office chair that has a padded cushion, padded back, and armrest. So I'm going to sit in comfort. I'm not sitting in a folding back chair. That third piece here slaps right up there nice and easy and locks together just like it should with the other 2 pieces. And now, before I put the last wall on, I have to get the roof in place. Again, I pre-built it and I have it all ready to go. It's measured out, and it should, once I get it up there with a little bit of struggle, slap right on and drop in place. And it does. It falls in place very nicely. Just a few screws for now to hold that in place where it belongs so it doesn't blow off or fall off. And then I can go get the fourth and final wall here. I had a screw in the top to help keep the door closed while I transported it, but now it can swing free, and it will probably, with my luck, flop open and try to fall. Luckily, it does not. So you can see here the whole thing slapped together. I'm going through corner by corner, putting in some anchor screws to hold it in place, put some screws along the bottom, and now I can install the windows and the handle on each window. I got to anchor in these handles because these windows are not on hinges. They actually just pull and pop right out of that window frame. I'll show you that here in a minute. I designed my first hunting blind this way with the windows, and I really like how it works. I've had issues with hinges in the past squeaking or breaking or just not working right, or the windows falling. So now I do this, and I can just pop that window right out, set it up top, and it has a latch, so I can latch it in place so it's not falling anywhere. And then when I'm done, I just lower it right back down. So I bought a tub of that Flex Seal stuff, and just like I did with my other hunting blind, if you watch that video, I am coating the window sills with Flex Seal. Two different reasons. One is moisture, so if a little bit of rain comes down and gets on that, it will not run and soak into that wood, so it's less likely to rot. But two, now I also will have a nice, quiet, rubberized gun rest if I'm going to be hanging a gun out that window. So let's take a look all the way around here. That is a view dead north. There's some wooded area there, a fence line, ag field, and there's a bunch of deer trails that meet up right there and work their way across here to the east, which is the doe bedding area, and I have a mock scrape out that window to the left that is getting used like crazy. Right in that direction there is the buck bedding area and a fence line or a field line that runs all the way from the south along this fence row where there's an ag field. And it's just a really good setup, I think. I might have to do a little bit of brush trimming once things leaf out so I can see how it looks in the fall. Other than that, I'm super happy with this area. I've got to brace this blind. Right now it's a little wiggly, but once I add these 2x4 cross bracings, it's going to solidify this blind and there's not going to be any wobble to it. This is like one of the last steps to me building this blind, except I've got to go up on the roof and anchor that sheet metal down to the actual walls. Right now the roof is only anchored to the roof frame and not to the actual blind itself, so this is going to make sure that roof does not blow off in strong winds and leave me wet. For anyone that does not know, I hate heights. This is very nerve-wracking for me to be up here on this thing, so I'm getting down as quick as I can. Here's a quick look at the inside. I used some laminate flooring that I had in the garage to give it a nice padded floor. My office chair set up. The windows are all built. I still have to put a locking mechanism of some sort on the outside, but I can deal with that later. For now, this is nice solid on the inside, and I'm super happy with the way this turned out. I just got to build me a ladder. And here is a flyover of the area once the blind is built. Down there in the middle, I have 2 honeybee hives and some sheet metal laying there that was extra. You can see the trails that I maintained that go right through here, through this wet, thick spot, past the blind, right up past my mock scrape, and right into that doe bedding area. And then in the springtime, it's a nice little water hole for the deer, but it's usually dried up in the fall and grows up really thick with grasses that the deer love to bed in and work through and eat on. So this is going to be a great addition to my hunting plan for this fall and going forward.